Hello and welcome everybody to the Those Coffee People podcast. I'm Louise speaking to you live from Medellin, Colombia. With this show, we aim to connect origin with destination, giving you insight from both sides into the coffee journey. Today, the founder of Faithful Saint Coffee, a roastery built on faith, tradition, and generosity. David, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Louise.
Course. Of course, it's a pleasure. So before we talk business tactics or we dive into like the theme of this show, of this particular episode, I'd love to start with your story. So you have quite an interesting introduction to coffee, I would say. Can you share a little bit more about how it got started for you and what made it so special to get into building a brand?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely, I think a lot of American kids out here, you grow up drinking your normal instant coffee with your parents, and you never really think like, "Oh, there's another world out there that might be different," you know? It's kinda like eating a hamburger and knowing that it's fresh, right? And then actually eating it towards where the source, where the cows are at and where they're grazing and everything, and, yeah, my introduction into really good coffee came in, I think, during college. Obviously, we needed to drink a lot of coffee to stay awake, to study, and things like that. But it wasn't until the nonprofit project that took me in 2009 to Nicaragua. We were there for a church planting project, just supporting the work that was there. But along the way, one of the missionaries took us to the mountains, and there we just got to see, like, you know, obviously the beauty of Nicaragua, but also just how the coffee cherries were made and how they were processed, and just seeing some of the views, of course, like, that was just, breathtaking. And then fast forward, I really didn't do much with that knowledge other than to appreciate it. Fast forward, it wasn't until 2014, when one of my friends down in Encinitas, California, actually taught me how to roast. He was funny. He used this old, like, 1970 yellow popcorn maker, and, he would just load it up with these, coffee beans that he found online, and, I didn't really think much of it. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. That's kinda novel." My gosh, I think the first time I had a cup of a shot that he pulled from that coffee, it was just night and day from what you would get from grocery store coffee, and I won't name brands or anything, but, like, you don't realize how much fresh versus how long it just sits on the shelf for a little bit, what a night and day difference it would be, and that was kinda like the intro into, like, appreciating fresh roasted and, artisan style coffees. And then, the last couple of years going to work in Thailand, that was a bigger foray into seeing actual processing, seeing how cafes run, and growing a deeper appreciation for the craft.
Well, that sounds like quite an experience you've had. And I totally agree. Like, once you start with the whole process of having freshly roasted coffee versus, like, already store bought coffee that, had been sitting there for like a little bit of time,
Yeah.
that I completely understand the difference that makes to like how you taste the coffee. So going a little bit back into your story, like what did working with like those farming communities or like being there at origin really teach you before you ever really started roasting?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think the main part is, like, there's a face, right, to the product that you're drinking and or eating, really. And I think because being in a modern age now where it's so easy, I mean, we slowly get disconnected as a society, right? I mean, even when we were kids, we were already disconnected from farm to table because you just go to a grocery store and you pick up a piece of meat. You don't think about the cow at all. But now even more so, because now you don't even need to go to the restaurant. You can just push on your phone and just drop your food off at the door. And you can get this in a third world country if you wanted, right? Not even in the United States. And so I think it's such a huge contrast whenever you get disconnected from the community and a network of provision. You slowly start to just not appreciate the hard work and the effort, and sometimes the sacrifices that families need to make in order to bring that piece of food that you just bought to the table. So there's a big disconnect, and not always intentional. Obviously, it's very difficult to be, it is stressful to every single meal to be thinking about, "Oh, I gotta be reflective about every meal." I don't think that that needs to be, but I think definitely just just the way that society works right now, especially if you live in the city, it's hard to always make that connection. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, I agree. And I think that's a really good point that you're mentioning right here. How do you, well, this is maybe perhaps a little bit of a difficult question to answer right at the point,
Yeah.
but
No, no.
go ahead and think about it. How do you think we can, like better this? Let's say, like, what can you do as a company? What can you do as an individual for this? Like, how do you view this?
Yeah. Yeah, that is the question of all questions, right? Like, because I think there's an element. I think this is true for every industry, right? If you see a challenge in an area that needs support in any industry, but specifically coffee, there's a component of education, there's the component of relationship, and there's the component of just grit and patience, right? I think at the end of the day, it's all about relationship. So the friendships that you make, the relationship partners in business that you make, those mean more than possibly automating the whole cycle, right? Like I think there's a temptation today to just use AI for everything or find the next best technology to shortcut everything or to make technology do something that you don't like to do. But the things that we don't like to do, like take risk, invest, make sacrifices, those are the things that drive the growth, right? Drive the education, drive the helping people see the bigger picture. And that's slow. I don't think there's any ever going to be any shortcut to that. And even if there is a shortcut, I don't think people value that, right? Because there's a big difference between someone painting an image that took a decade to master versus something that you can crank out in 5 seconds, right? From image generation of sorts. And even if they say like, no, look how beautiful it is, but I'm like, look at how much money people are willing to pay the artist versus that guy just made that image on his phone or whatever, right? Like there's a clear difference in how we attribute value and people give value. Like our money system has no value unless someone puts and says the dollar is worth this much, right? Or this coffee's worth this much, or this painting's worth this much. And so I think so going back to that question, I think it's threefold. It's definitely understanding where value comes from and how it's built. And it takes a long time. I don't think like we can shortcut that and it has to be built on one relationship at a time and we're we're people, we can only meet so many people at once anyways, you can't meet everybody, and so yeah, I think that the lasting change is slow and it just is intentional.
So let's start with like the first thing, which is I believe you mentioned relationships. What can people do then to be perhaps like a little bit more conscious about like who they buy from perhaps or who they relate to or like who they trust basically, like what can people really do to make sure that the coffee product, let's focus this on coffee right now because that's like
Yeah, yeah,
what we both work in, but let's
right.
say like with any product, let's say coffee, what can people actually do to make sure that their relationships are good, because that's difficult.
Yeah, 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 it really is. I think the extension of good business is always a desire to serve your neighbor, right? To serve the people in your community. And what that means sometimes when starting especially is that you kind of have to be ready to give away yourself without anything in return. I think so oftentimes like we give with the expectation that I'm hoping to get something back. And that you can feel that, right? When someone's making a sale and you can kind of tell like they're not there to really like serve you, but they're just kind of hoping to get something out of you. Hey, a lot of people can feel that. And so I think it starts with like the mindset of service. Like, how can I make the best product or roast the best product or source the best product so that I can bring this joy that I have to others, right? And if they've never had it, like give them a sample. Like, hey, dude, let me make you some coffee. Like come over my house or come over like, hey, I have this booth that we set up at this nonprofit event. Like coffee's on me. Try it, like taste and see. Like so I think first off it starts with the personal like individual where they have to first view, if they're doing coffee, that they're doing it to better their community. And we believe that, right? Like this stuff helps you think better, helps you enjoy your day, and helps you start your morning. And so, like, if this is the product that we're offering to people, like, hey, I just want to give it out to you. Like, try it, you know? And over time, I think as people taste it and see, they'll come back. They're like, I like that. I like that it wasn't that he wasn't pushy about it. And then he really just cared about me. And I think that's the big part is like, man, like you go to any yeah, coffee shop and you feel that from a barista or you feel that from someone who has sold you a really nice cup of coffee, you want to come back. So I think it's
Yes.
it's it's kind of holistic. Right? It's in one sense it is making the product really delicious. But if you have really a really delicious product, but you don't care for the people that you serve and you're like, just try it. And then you're offended that they don't see eye to eye with you, that's okay. But if you're gonna treat them in a way where they feel like, "Oh, this guy's like a coffee snob or he only appreciates really good value, he doesn't understand," then you've already lost.
So it's also a little bit more about understanding who's in front of me, like
Right.
what they might be needing. That's an
That's right.
interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. So, have you had any feedback, like from this point, about what we just talked about from your customers as well? That you were like, oh, that really touched me?
Yeah. Like, the funny part with our business is, like, most of the customers we have were never customers that we chased down. Like, I didn't go out and say like, "Hey, you should be my customer." It was more like, "Dude, I made this thing. It's awesome. Like, you gotta try it. Like, I just have it," you know? And some people have come back and they're like, "Dude, I wanna be a part of this. I wanna try it. Your stuff is delicious." And I'm like, "Really? Like, thanks." So it's been surprising, you know? And obviously there's, for every win, there's also a loss too. There's other people that you're super stoked to share and you're excited for them to have the same reaction that they don't. And for whatever reason, and that partly is preference, right? Because coffee is so broad, you can do whatever you want. Some people love it like, like an Italian roast, super shiny and dark, and that's the best thing in the world. And some people like it's so light that it's almost like tea, right? And so I can only do what I like and what I think is amazing for myself. And I know that there are other people like me that like it. And so I think I have to stay true to that. But at the same time, it's just recognizing what people need. I think that's the most important part is to like not be offended by their response and to not to grow overly confident that your stuff is so good that it can't like suffer in quality, right? So I think that to keep a balanced, humble look to always striving for excellence. But even if you are striving for excellence and it is excellent work, it's not always indicative of the response that you'll get. And a person's response should not indicate always the quality of your work, right? So even if you poured 1,000 hours into this and it's amazing, just outright amazing and good quality, that person might not like it, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that your stuff is bad. It just means that it's just not a good fit. And so I
Yeah.
think discerning that has been helpful rather than taking things personally.
I think that's a really good lesson in general in coffee. Like coffee is so personal and it's so like diverse. What I might really enjoy for my coffees is something that you might think like, "Ugh, that's disgusting," or like I would
Yeah.
never drink it again. I would prefer
Right,
it
right.
like this, for example. So no, I totally agree. Like that's a really important part of also like knowing your customers perhaps a little bit better and seeing what. Well, I mean, you cannot sell to everyone. So who are you going to be selling to, right? So let's dive a little bit more into how you got started. Perhaps. So you mentioned you learned roasting in 2014, but didn't sell until years later. So what kept that hobby, let's say, like going on for so long?
Yeah, yeah, honestly, time, and also the timing of needing to set up a business didn't make sense yet. I mean, but that period, like up from 2014 all the way to 2023 was when we actually opened. I worked in the nonprofit space and during that time there was a lot of transition, from different organizations that we worked with. But the real pivot was close to 2022 when I had twin girls. And I have two twin. I'm sorry, two sets of twins. One twin boys and then twin girls. And during that window, it was like, oh crud! like we don't have enough money. Like, I mean, we do have money, but we can make rent and things like that. But it just felt like nonprofit work is not the most lucrative. And so we needed to find a way to supplement our income. And of course, like being of faith, I prayed and try to seek different things, different businesses. I mean, coffee was probably the third business that I started. And so, I started like so I'm actually trained in information technology, so in IT. And so that was a number of years that I worked in the industry for that. And then I did like graphic design and web development and some of that stuff. And so coffee was kind of a blend, right? Because it took the talents of what I had, which I enjoyed coffee, I enjoyed design, I love the aesthetic. Like there's competitions and all kinds of like coffee artistry, the bags, the obviously the environment too, right? When you get to like certain coffee shops, it's not just like they're all diverse, right? And so it's like I love interior design in that regard too. And so it's just seeing the intersection of interest come together. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna see like if anybody would even, and if worse comes to worse, we'll just let the ship sink and burn, right? Like if it doesn't work. And so I started roasting out of our backyard in our tiny little apartment in California. So I had a few bags, and back then, I wasn't on electric or any nice roaster or anything like that. It was just more fire, propane, and you had this like crank. I mean, it was motorized, so it was a little better than a popcorn maker, but it was a motorized Samsung motor with a metal drum and a propane stove that was underneath it. But it would take me, gosh, like 3 hours just to roast like
My God.
4 batches, and it was like 4 standard sized batches, right? Because the drum is only 300 grams, and so it took so long. But and of course, like you can't measure the rate of rise or any of the temperature when it pops and stuff. You just look for smoke. You just look for, and you hope the popcorn starts coming off, right? And so there's no, it's as raw as it gets, right?
That sounds
But
like
that was
quite
it.
an adventure.
Yeah, yeah. And so I just kind of started doing that and gave it out to friends, and they liked it, and over time, as more people liked it, I thought more like, you know what, I should pour some of my savings and buy a roaster, and that's kind of what I did. Bought a roaster, a bigger one, and then started scaling a little bit more. And then I started sending it out to like some of our more coffee uh, versed friends, the ones that are in SF and New York, like the ones that are like living in those like very high competition areas. And I was like really scared because I was like, man, what are you going to say about this? And they gave me good feedback. I think that's the part, right? Like you need to get good feedback and you need to be okay, like brace yourself, but that helped me grow. But yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think partly the needs of our family drove the hard look of what am I gifted at? It could have been any other product, honestly. It could have been like, you know, uh, cards or like some other business. But this one was like, I want to create something that is fun, that is me, that is something that I feel like I have certain talents for. And that that thin layer of like jumping, right? Like you have to make that jump to make that risk. It's just like getting rejected by a girl, or like when you're asking someone out for a date, right? Like you're gonna get rejected, but if you don't ask, you don't know. And so starting a business in some ways is reminiscent of just taking risk in life. And so that was kind of in 2023. That was when I felt like there was enough critical mass to formalize like a business entity.
So for me, it sounds like you basically just thought, okay, I'm good at this. I already do this, and this is something that I can do. Let's just mix it all together and take the gas. Let's say, like, just go all in. I
Yeah,
imagine
yeah,
that was also quite scary. So what were like like some of the things where you were like, oh my God, how do I do this? Or if I knew
yeah,
now, man, what would I have changed?
yeah. I think the biggest fear is like not being able to provide. right? Not being able to provide for your family, not being able to provide for yourself. And I know for some individuals, you can easily build an identity around what you do, right? Like if you don't succeed or you don't have a successful business or whatever or job, you can easily erode your self-worth and allow that to dictate who you are. But I think coming back, like, human worth is intrinsic, right? Like you can't give it to yourself, neither can anybody else. Like going to the fact that you kind of have to remember that as long as you're seeking to grow and seeking to learn from the mistakes, that then it's going to be okay. But if you're not ready to and willing to do that, it's going to be hard. Not that it won't improve. I think people get to that part in various stages of their business, right? You doubt, you go, you doubt, you go. Like it's not like you're like in this upward trajectory. It's like this.
It's like a heartbeat. Let's just say the
Yeah,
heartbeat.
yeah, that's right. That's right. There's so much volatility in our lives and so many things that are unknown, but we can't just let the unknown like define, our joy of being able to take that risk, right? So yeah, I think a lot of it was fear of just not being able to provide, but at the same time, I think having a good network, family, friends, people to really share your burdens with you, and I know that that's not always a given, but I think having good friends in your life that you could share like, "Oh, dude, I'm not having a good time today. Oh, dude, like someone just ripped me off in business," or like just being able to soundboard, I think is really helpful, right? I think being an entrepreneur is a lonely work at times because not everybody is an entrepreneur. Some people are just regular salary, and not to say a salary is any easier. No way. It's just a different calling, right? And so I think having for myself, I can't speak for everybody, but for myself, recognizing those fears and being able to have people in your life to share and be honest, like, I'm fearful. I'm not sure if this is going to work out. And then just to keep on like persevering. I think that's the
I think that's a very strong mentality, like to be able to say like, "Hey, I don't know about this. Let's try, but
yeah.
it might go wrong." Yeah, I think that's a really good mentality to have, like to allow yourself to also grow into like a new position that you're not familiar with or not used to.
Right. Right.
I admire that, honestly. So starting about like like talking a little bit more about scaling up, etc. Like, when did you realize that your current roasting setup wasn't enough anymore? That you needed to grow, to expand?
Yeah, yeah. I think looking at your time, right? Because if your time per hour, this is the amount of bags, right? Like in 1 hour, I roasted 1 bag. Like that is not good, right? If you're trying to serve more than one family. So realizing like, oh, this is how many families I want to serve. I need to get X amount of machines in place or equipment procured in order to output this much, right? So I think having those set metrics, right, like of desiring to grow in a certain direction will help you plan. So if you're like, okay, so if right now I'm only serving 5 families and I want to grow to 10, what do I need to do? So you kind of work backwards in some ways, right?
You
But
reverse
at the same time,
engineer.
yeah, you reverse engineer. And obviously there is a temptation. I think sometimes when you're in the industry, I think obviously the machine salespeople want to sell machines, and so they could tell you like you can make this much amount of money if you buy our machine or whatever, right? Like, but that is great, and it could be true. But I think it's always going to come back to is like you kind of have to first look at where you're at, like physically, mentally, emotionally, family structure. All those things have to come into play, and also look at like if I scale too fast. Let's say I got like this massive machine or whatever, and I don't have the experience or the infrastructure or the employees to even help out. Like, yeah, I have the capacity to output like crazy, but then it doesn't match the number of customers that I have. And so I think that's one of the challenges of being humble with trying to figure out like this is where I'm at, this is how I'm outputting consistently, and this is a reasonable next upgrade. Instead of, like, making that huge jump, and then you're in debt.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No, I bet that's like one of the biggest challenges I think in every business there is.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So then how do you know? I mean, how do you evaluate, okay, I think right now, yes, let's go and buy this thing because it's also a lot of money, so it's a big investment. So when do you know?
Yeah. No, I think it's gonna be hard, right? I don't think this is gonna be a one formulaic answer for everybody. But I can say this is that it's unique to every business, unique to every business owner because every business owner has a family, and whether you're single or married or with kids or whatever, like there's restraints that are unique to you. And that could be capital, that could be physical energy, that could be mental, right? And so let's say you have all the money in the world, but you don't have like the headspace to be in it. Like, it doesn't matter how much money you throw into your business, like, you can't run it
Yes.
administratively. And so, but if you're like gifted administratively and you can run your business, but you don't have the capital, then you can't outspend what you don't have. And so I think for the first question is to ask, like, what are my restraints? And I can only speak to myself right now, being a dad of five little ones, like I can't work too much, right? Like if I work too much and I can build this business quickly, but then if they're gonna, for me, an important part is like if 10 years down the line, if they don't want to hang out with me anymore, like what have I done? I've achieved this great business, but the kids are like, you were never around. You didn't hang out with us. You didn't play with us. So my restraint is not going to be the same as a guy who or a woman who doesn't have that same family dynamic. But for me, that's a big question. Another one is just my wife too, like seeing how she is and making sure that I'm around. And then financially, that's another one, obviously, like that's a big one. But finances have to be balanced with your family relationships, right? Like, so I will grow it at the pace, at least for our business. I want to grow it at the pace where my kids can still see that I'm around. I can involve them and my wife feels like she's like can hey, I can ask him for help when I need him, right? Like so I think those are my restraints, my personal restraints. And so but everybody has to ask that question is like what are the relationships in your life that are important and with what margin that I have left, can I use this margin to then pour into that entity, right, that I'm trying to grow. But you can't do the reverse. I think a lot of times people do it in reverse where they're like, I'm gonna make us this amazing company or whatever. You're gonna appreciate it. You're gonna be on there for the ride. You're gonna appreciate me along the way. And then you missed all the years, right? But obviously, I didn't come to this perspective on my own. Obviously, it was with the help of mentors and books and observation and really seeing that this is the one that I would like to commit to, that my family stays intact, and then I have the joy of still growing my business, but I can't scale. I'm not gonna scale as fast as some of the other business will, but this is makes sense for us.
That sounds like a good plan and like something well thought out of. So I think that that's a really good advice also for people starting out, I think. How do you, well, in your opinion, how do you grow without like losing your value? So, for example, for faithful saint, I imagine it's like faith, a little bit of tradition, personal connection. I mean, you talk a lot about personal connection, so I think that's something that you really value. How do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really hard. I think first off, right, I mean, every business has their motto, and they have the mission statement that they need to abide by, right? I think everybody has to set that up, whether it's faith-based or not. Every organization has that. They want to provide the best customer service. They want to create the finest product. They want to only source the best ingredients. Let's just take those three, right? And those are three that you'll stand on. That's good. I think that's a good start. The second is like having a great team, accountability, I think, right? Especially we're in that phase right now where we're still growing, but I think having um, a good team that helps you out, a good board, if the people that have invested in you, that have provided you direction, and even if you're a solopreneur, have a mentor, right? Have somebody who is, 10 steps ahead of you, and have finished the game well. Having them provide you feedback as you grow and then make those assessments, right? Like, are you still providing the same services that you set out to do every quarter, right? And if you're not, that's okay. I don't think anybody's gonna nail like their plan perfectly. That's impossible. right? Even the best companies have to like redirect the ship as soon as shareholders are like, stop, stop, like you're. So I think it's first off knowing what that quality is and being super clear about it. Because if you're not clear about it, every other you're gonna end up chasing trends. This is the next cool thing. This is the next cool thing. This is the, and then before you know it, you're not unique, right?
Mm.
And so I think there's that, and I think people should be encouraged, right? Like every person who starts a coffee business, there's going to be no other coffee business like it. It's just you, because there's no other person on earth that's you. Right. And
That's
so,
true.
right. So even if you try to scale, it's always going to be a little different, and that's okay. But I think it's a combination of knowing what you're about, which is the mission, and then having people come alongside you, inviting that feedback to help you stay the course. And that could be that for sure is mentors. For sure it's customers. You got to ask them, how did it taste? Did you like it? Did you not? You don't like it? Oh, can I recommend you a new one? What'd you think? So I think being diligent with checking in with the people that you serve can provide that guiding principle, whether or not you're serving. Because I think at the end of the day, that's who you're doing is like, you're not creating this like obscure art project for yourself. You're creating a product that people can enjoy, and you're making the connection of all the hard work of men and women on the field that have produced this beautiful crop, and you're trying to translate it, you're trying to match it with the people that might like it, and that's it. So I think it's willingness of being open while simultaneous knowing where you started. And I'd say too, if you started the mission wrong or the mission can change, that's okay. I don't think you should beat yourself up if you find that this is, oh, that's, we started up with this quality control thing and it's just not good.
It's a learning experience, but I
Yeah.
think that's like I say way to say like it's all learnings and you just go up from there, let's say. So talk about like your first customers and everything. Like who were they? Like how did you get those?
Yeah. Well, my first customers was definitely my wife, and just roasting it for her to try it, and then just friends, right? Like friends in our neighborhood. I would just give it out, and I still give out coffee to our neighborhood friends. Friends at our church, friends at my postal service. Because I send so much coffee out. Enough times that they know who you are. Oh, you're the coffee guy. Yeah, man. Like, how are you? And so I think first customers doesn't need to be complicated. I think sometimes we get so caught up with like it needs to be official, it needs to be meditated, it needs to be super intentional. And honestly, just give it to somebody you know, and it could be your best friend, and and it could be a guy that you met at the grocery store. It could be anybody. And so I think that was kind of how I started. Was yeah, just with neighbors, with friends, and just got feedback. So
So
yeah.
start small and then slowly from there, like you expand
Yeah.
it basically. Okay.
Right, right, and then eventually their friends of friends of friends of friends start ordering, and you're like, "I don't even know this person," and that's when you
Hmm.
know that your business is growing because you're like, "I'm getting people I don't know anymore. I don't
Yes.
even know who this person is." So,
So did you ever use, for example, any like social media strategies or any like digital marketing strategies, or was like the main part of your business like word of mouth kind of marketing?
yeah, I'm not good at social marketing at all. And then partly because I don't have time for it, and also,
Hmm.
I just feel like there's just so many people that are talented and understand that craft much better than me. How we grew our business has been more of the, I mean, in America, if you say Costco, everybody knows that brand because it's a wholesaler, but one of the famous things that they do, I guess in South America, I mean, it's Price Club or whatever they call it, right? Like, but they do samples, right? And that was one of the ways in which I learned from them. Honestly, like at Costco, one of the funny parts that they do is they sell this hot dog, right? It's a loss leader. Now they sell it probably for less than what I mean, for what they took to make it, right? Because it's like $1.40 for an entire meal, right? With a hot dog and a drink for $1.50. But the beautiful part about that is that it gets people through the door. It gets people to try other stuff in the warehouse, and over time, like people just grew up with it, and there's a tradition that is built, right? So if anything that is gained from I mean, people walk around with shoes that have like the menu of Costco built into it now, right? Like there's a collaboration between Nike and Costco or t-shirts. People love it and there's nothing special. The design sucks. It doesn't look nice. Like, but it's beautiful because it tells a story of like the brand, the enduring reality that they were willing to invest in their customers for a long, long time. And so I think that word of mouth component, but also just the being generous aspect of like, why would you sell a hot dog for $1.50 at this day and age, right? Like there's that generosity of willing to lose money for the sake of your customer. And I think that resonates with people. Yeah.
I like that. I think that's a really good like strategy as well, like to think of it like I sell you something cheap, but then I also offer something else, so that like helps build like a way for people to come back to you and like selling coffee for like selling hot dogs for 150. That's a deal,
Yeah,
a really
yeah,
good one.
right. And just like going above and beyond, and I think you guys do this pretty well, and with your structure too. Like I've never worked with a distributor that's willing to go and provide social media content and provide pictures and check in and do all this stuff. Like, I mean, you guys do it well, and it's encouraging to have that relationship. And so I think there's components of good business everywhere if you take a look at it. It's businesses that are willing to go beyond and also acknowledging the fact that there could be a risk of like that customer's taking advantage of you, right? Because as much as Costco has that generosity aspect, they also allow people to return a bunch of stuff. They're like they buy it and and it's total abuse. Like some people just like use a Christmas tree. They buy a Christmas tree, then a Christmas, and then they start returning it like right after. And it's like that is so. But Costco is like, you know what? I know you're taking advantage of me, but I'm gonna give you like I'm gonna make it worth it that you'll stay in the system, that you'll be with us because we'll take care of you.
Yeah, I think there are very like a lot of ethical aspects into like doing business and well having clients, etc. So it like also like moves me to my next question, which is from your side, well, as a roaster and as a brand owner, what helped you to have your customers connect with the coffee you sell?
Yeah. A lot of my customers are like first time specialty coffee drinkers, right? They've never been exposed. And so I
Hmm.
get the privilege to really expose them. And some of them are like, oh my gosh, like I've never had it like this before, or this is really good. And so part of it is like you play a role in education, just helping people understand like this is where it is, how it's different, where it's grown, why it tastes different, so that and also finding ways to elevate their brewing capacity too, right? Like some people brew it really bad because they don't know, right? They don't know, and I was the same way, like, so I think there's a reality of, like, educating people, but also being present to give good feedback, but also it has to be tempered with an understanding that everybody is in a different part of the journey. So you can't just come in and educate them and make them feel stupid. Like that's the quickest way to lose a customer, right? And they'll walk away not the fact that your coffee is awesome. They just walked away with the fact that this guy is like full of himself, right? And so, yeah, so education, understanding where people are at and seeing how you can support their journey of understanding and growing and enjoying the craft.
Okay. Then going back a little bit more to like why we initially like started this podcast, like also like having the connection between origin and destination. So like you're right now at destination, I'm right now at origin. Do you think there's anything, for example, that we can provide to you or that we should like exchange to make this story even
Yeah. Hmm. Well, I know you guys do the trips, and so that's pretty cool to do that. There is nothing like it, right? Like if you're trying to get someone to serve in a particular area in the world or to understand and get like a very visceral experience, I think there's nothing like it, right? To come and visit the farms, right? To visit and to enjoy that process. But I know it's not for everyone. for sure. Family limitations and travel limitations, so it's hard. But yeah, I think having collaborations like this is helpful for the industry. Of course, like there's like different creative things you could do. I know like there's other businesses that send out samples and people have it like online simultaneously together to try it, because there is something about a communal experience, right? When you're in the same physical space. I think there's a benefit for virtual like this, but I think having a physical space to experience some of the coffees. People like that. I mean, I've been to some of the coffee tastings of different not breweries. I'm sorry, roasteries that they put on. I know in Orange they did one where I think it was with Play Coffee, if I can remember, but like really trained, Q graders and all kinds of people were there, and they would just invite you to try different origins, and they would talk you through the story and let you like you know, have a have a different perspective on assessment. So I think anywhere that we can involve people to experience it in person is good. I think the next best thing is like virtual things like this, but I think it's always going to be the same, right? Like inviting people into a conversation.
Yes, definitely. Like seeing with your eyes and feeling the actual like product is so different than just like reading it online or talking to someone online or, even conversations. Like I think also like in-person conversations are way stronger in the essence of like really being able to connect with a person because you see the whole body and you see like the whole like physical appearance of someone and how they react to what you're saying, of course. And same
Yeah,
with like with
absolutely.
coffee.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, David, it has been a pleasure talking to you and having you on the show. Thank you for helping us over, well, for reminding us that coffee isn't just a product, but it's also really about like trust and intention and everything behind it. Is there anything you would like to say to the audience before we close?
No, I just want to give encouragement to you guys. I think what you guys are doing is great, and the care that you as a company provide for for other roasters and check in with them, and yeah, we really appreciate the work that you guys do. So thank you.
That is so sweet. We love working with you as well. Like we love being partner with you. Um, yeah, one final thing I wanted to ask you is how can the listeners find you?
Yeah, the best way is go to our website, faithfulsaintcoffee .com. So yeah, faithfulsaintcoffee.com. My email's on there as well. Sorry, and that's the best way to just reach out and samples. If you guys want free samples and or you just want to try another competitor's product, like hit me up, and we can trade. That'd be a fun thing to trade for different roasteries. Hey, yeah, I got stuff from. I mean, it might be kind of funny because it might be all your beans. We're just trading the same beans. Like, oh, it kind of tasted the same from those coffee people, but we could definitely do that. That'd be fun.
That sounds nice. Well, thank you, David, so much for being there. And thank you to the listeners for listening to this episode. And please stay tuned for the next one.